The Abominable Love, a novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This tale is a work of fiction, but the entire novel is based on a real love story between an Arab girl and an African boy. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 35. The Arab girl Insaf is summoned for a fourth hearing in court. After their short and sad honeymoon, the two lovers, Ding and Insaf, dropped the idea of traveling to the cities of Gadaref and Port Sudan as a result of the hateful racist attitudes they faced in the capital city of their country. They expected to go through even worse racist harassment and abuse in eastern Sudan. Then the newlywed lovers rented a small, simple hut in a slummed neighborhood inhabited by poor African Sudanese from South Sudan, the Nuba Mountains, and the Darfur region. Most of them are the so-called Jingo slaves. The medical student Deng found part-time evening work and continued his studies at the University of Khartoum during the day. It was his Arab wife who insisted on him continuing his studies in medicine. Insaf preferred to be a housewife. Every Thursday evening, the husband Deng takes his beautiful wife Insaf to swim and practice basketball. The Arab wife is enjoying her new sport and showing substantial progress. When she was living with her Arab family in the city of Gadaref, she was not allowed to practice any kind of sport or play because a Muslim girl is considered an awara or naked, and therefore it is not permissible for her to expose her body and play or swim semi-naked like a boy. After her marriage to her African boyfriend, Deng, Insaf felt like a bird that has been freed from its iron prison cage. When they finish their practice in swimming and basketball training, the two lovers will either go to a restaurant in the evening to have dinner or watch a movie at night in one of the cinema halls. They decided to ignore the racist Arabs and enjoy their married life. By then, they have become accustomed to the racist attitudes of the so-called superior race of Sudanese Arabs. Days pass beautifully and wonderfully for the two intimate lovers. One day, Insaf felt dizzy and vomited while exercising. Deng immediately took her to the hospital. The medical examination showed that she is pregnant. This news brought a lot of joy to the happy couple. From that day on, Deng took greater responsibility for household chores. He encouraged his wife to rest and not do any work. Insaf teased her husband by saying that she wished the baby would be born in 2 years so that he would always treat her like a queen. Deng never returned from college or work without bringing fruits or candies for his pregnant beloved wife, such as apples, pineapples, mangoes, oranges, and baklava sweet, which is called basta in Sudan. The beautiful wife, Insaf, protested that her loving husband, Deng, is overfeeding her. In a fleeting period, she gained a lot of weight and regained her beauty and charm. 3 months passed since the Arab wife became pregnant. During those months, Deng and Insaf became deeply attached to each other, and their love is renewed. The Arab wife rarely leaves their hut. She was never bored and did not miss the outside world. Her loving African husband gives her everything that the outside world has denied her for so long. Her suffering and homelessness in the past are diminished by the joy and happiness of the present and the bright future that has yet to come. She had almost forgotten her sad and abusive past life. One day, when the happy lovers have finished eating their lunch, the postman came and handed them a little notice. The notice is very brief, and the only thing they can understand from its wording is that they are being asked to attend a court hearing. This little notice made the happy couple feel as if an angry Muslim terrorist has suddenly dropped a bomb inside their happy nest of home and shattered everything in an instant. They rushed immediately to their lawyer, Siham Khalil, and asked her to decipher the language of the legal memo. The atheist feminist and women's rights activist Siham Khalil also became puzzled by the court's request. Despite this, she assured them that the notice has nothing to do with the accusations against which Insaf had previously been unfairly tried. She guessed it had something to do with their marriage. For example, mistakes in recording their ages, not having enough witnesses to their marriage, wrong addresses, incorrect spelling of their names, and similar other trivial legal problems. In this case, just a 10-minute visit to the marriage registrar can solve this seemingly invincible problem. Due to Deng's busy schedule, their lawyer advised the newlywed lovers to wait for the appointed day to go to court together. The explanation and encouragement of the atheist lawyer, Siham Khalil, made the two lovers relax and wait for the upcoming trial day. Since the court hearing was scheduled for a week later, the couple ignored the matter and resumed their daily lives. On the day scheduled for the legal hearing, Deng and Insaf hired a taxi and went to court. Upon their arrival, they were informed that the relevant legal matter they were invited to attend would be dealt with in the Sharia court and not in the criminal court. Accordingly, the couple took another taxi and headed to the Sharia court. The Sharia court holds its sessions in a small room. When Insaf and Deng entered the courtroom, they found a few people. They didn't bother to look at their faces and see whether any of them are familiar or not, friend or foe. They occupied the two front seats and waited impatiently for the judge and jurymen to appear. They waited for an hour before they saw three old men entering the small room that looked like a kindergarten tiny room. Each of the three elderly people supports his body with a long stick to prevent himself from falling forward and breaking his fragile skull. The three are wearing white pajamas called galabiyas, large turbans, homemade leather shoes called marakib, and eyeglasses. Their watches hang on chains inside their left breast pockets. As they crawled inside the classroom like ancient turtles, their mouths engaged in various activities. One of them sneezes, another coughs, and the third burps. Their hands are constantly moving from pocket to mouth and vice versa. Whenever their hands go into their right pockets, they came out with white napkins the size of bath towels. Then they stop, wipe their faces, and take another step forward. They do this uniformly as if they were military soldiers trained for such work in a military parade. It took the three old religious judges 15 minutes to crawl from the door to their chairs. As soon as the three old men reached their seats, a man came forward and introduced them to the audience. This court of Allah and His Prophet welcomes Maulana Yasin Wad al-Hussein, the main judge of the Sharia court, and his two assistants, Maulana Sharaf al-Din Wad Mamun and Maulana Alamin Wad al-Basir. The audience stood, looked at the three old faces, and then sat down. Then the same presenter announced the purpose of the gathering. "Oh, just Judge, Maulana Yasin, and your assistants, Maulana Sharaf al-Din and Maulana Alamin. Today you have 5 trials to conduct and to impose upon them the judgment of God Almighty and His infallible messenger, the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace." The chief judge, Maulana Yasin, shouted, "Bring the trial number 1. Fatna, the daughter of Jara al-Nabai or the Prophet's neighbor, presents to you her complaint against Asha Sit al-Banat, or the mistress of the daughters. The citizen Fatna accuses her neighbor Asha of stealing one of her chickens." When Insaf and Deng heard the first case, they thought that they either came to the wrong court or came to a mental institution, and these men and women are crazy and out of their minds, so they say and do ridiculous things. 2 old women came out who looked like witches. Each of them placed her right hand on the Holy Quran and swore by the Book of God that the little red hen was hers. The disputed chicken itself was brought in by a policewoman. Then the 3 old judges whispered for a while and came to a fair decision. Maulana Sharaf al-Din said, "This little red chicken has become the property of the court of God and His messenger." The audience clapped their hands for the fair justice of the Sharia court. Some of them shouted, "Allahu Akbar," and others said, "The truth has come and crushed falsehood." Indeed, falsehood was crushed. The 2 defiant hag old women protested, but were silenced by threats of flogging and long imprisonment. They were told that if they did not come out, they would be arrested, flogged mercilessly on their buttocks and backs, and then thrown behind bars indefinitely. Maulana Alamin said, Bring case number 2. Kantashaya bint Koko filed a lawsuit against her neighbor Hafsa bint Alajab because of her gossip against her, which she said to Sarah bint Da'albait. 3 women came out, and one of them was asked to touch the book of God with her right hand and swear that the accusation was not true. The woman in question extended her right hand, hit the Holy Quran angrily, and denied the accusation. Case number 2 was dismissed. Maulana Sharaf al-Din shouted, "Bring the trial number 3." Otman Wad Babakar complains against his wife, Halima bint Habibullah, because she ran away from his house and ran to her parents' house. A young man and a young woman in their early 20s, looking like a newly married couple, came out and faced the 3 judges. Maulana Al-Amin asked the wife, "Why did you leave your Muslim husband's house and flee to your parents' residence?" The girl said while crying, "Because my husband beats me as much as he beats a camel." Maulana Yasin angrily asked, "Why do you hit your wife like you hit an animal?" The young man said frankly, "Because she always refuses to let me have sex with her every day in my bed." Maulana Sharaf al-Din asked in a loud and angry voice, "Why do you refuse to sleep with your husband when he asks for you in bed?" The girl said shyly, "I refused to let him have sex with me when I wasn't in the mood to have fun." The main judge shouted with extreme anger, "What did you say, disobedient wife?" The disobedient wife was terrified and jumped back. Then he shouted, "Listen, man, take this disobedient and stubborn woman to your home, and if she refuses once again to give your penis what God has given you from her vagina, then punish her with your long whip and your thick stick. And if she now refuses to go home with you or runs to her family's house again, come back here." Maulana Yasin said, "We will give you 3 armed policewomen to drag her from her parents' house like an animal and bring her to your house by force." Maulana Sharaf al-Din said seriously, "If she becomes the wife of disobedient and rebellious woman again, lock her inside the house of obedience and beat her day and night with your long whip just like hitting a camel until her demons come out of her head, which is inhabited by goblins." The husband accepted the so-called ruling of God, his infallible prophet Muhammad, grabbed the hand of his rebellious wife, and took her out of the courtroom. 2 armed policewomen escorted the rebellious woman out of the courtroom while she is crying. Then the 2 police officers told her Muslim husband to go ahead of them in a taxi and prepare a small room in his house to lock up his disobedient and rebellious wife in his house of obedience until the demons came out of her haunted head. Chapter 36. The trial of the free Arab wife and her African Negro husband before the Sharia court. The main judge of the Sharia court, Maulana Yasin Wad al-Hussein, declared loudly, "Now bring trial number 4. Trial number 4 happens to be the complaint against the Arab wife, Insaf, and her African husband, Deng." The court clerk read aloud, "Haj Sola al-Junaid, a citizen of the city of Gadarif, from the Arab Shakia tribe, and a follower of the Ansar al-Sunnah al-Nabawiyya Mohammadiyya group, today presents to you his complaint against Deng Nasser, a black African Negro citizen from South Sudan who belongs to the Dinka tribe. This black African Negro man married the free white Arab daughter of Haj Sulla, Insaf, without asking his permission. According to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, any Islamic marriage without the presence of the father as guardian is adultery, and the wife is considered adulteress. Insaf turned into a statue when her eyes suddenly saw her biological father standing before her in flesh and bones. His face looked angry. In his right hand he holds a noticeably large stick. His long mustache is still there, and it looks as thick as grass, but his large beard has become white as a leprosy. He holds a gray prayer bead in his left hand. His mustache seemed to have doubled in length since his daughter had last seen him. His mustache appears longer than that of the German existentialist philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. His long mustache and large beard made him look like a man crucified upside down. He does not look at his disobedient, runaway daughter, but rather stares angrily at the faces of the 3 judges. Her husband Ding had never seen his father-in-law before, but he guessed that the man standing in front of them was like a devil, the notorious one. The African husband touched his Arab wife's hand gently and encouraged her to move forward. Then he approached the angry father and stood between him and his frightened daughter. Before questioning the suspected African husband, the three judges looked at the couple for a surprisingly long time. Two of them took off their glasses and cleaned their lenses. Then they replaced them, put on other sharper glasses, stared at husband Ding, and searched his body from head to toe. Their scrutinizing eyes moved from Insaf to Ding, to him, and to her. They spent a long time looking at the white Arab wife and admiring her stunning beauty and sexy body. When the three Muslim rulers satisfied their curiosity and lustful desires for her, their attention turned to her father, Hajj Sulla. Maulana Yasin wondered in confusion, "Did you marry your beautiful white Arab daughter to this black African Negro?" The courtman said impatiently, "Oh, Hazrat Maulana Yasin, this boy married Hajj Sulla's daughter without taking his permission. In other words, this black African Negro married this white Arab girl without the consent of her guardian." Maulana Sharif al-Din shouted angrily at Deng, "Did you marry this girl without asking her father for her hand in marriage?" Deng replied, "Yes, sir." Maulana Al-Amin shouted with extreme anger as sparks flew from his eyes, "Why did you do that? Is she your slave girl that you bought from the slave market in Omdurman city, or did she the street girl with no Arab family or home? She's not one of those bad women you mentioned. She is a good, polite, well-behaved girl from a respectable Arab family." Maulana Yasin asked angrily, "Then why didn't you go and knock on the door of her free Arab father and ask for her hand in marriage from him?" The African husband, Ding, said sadly, "Because her free Arab father threw her on the streets." Maulana Sharif al-Din shouted with astonishment and perseverance, "Hajj Sulla, did you throw your free Arab daughter into the streets?" Hajj Sulla answered angrily while his reddened eyes sparkled, "I am not such an evil father as to throw my free Arab daughter into the streets. This damned rebellious and disobedient daughter ran away from my home and married this black Negro boy without my permission." Maulana Sharif al-Din asked, "Why is your Arab daughter running away from you? There must be a strong reason for her rebellion." Maulana Sharif al-Din answered his own question, "Because this black-faced African Negro boy committed adultery with her and impregnated her with a forbidden bastard child or walid haram outside the bond of a permissible Islamic marriage. And you wanted to slaughter her in an honor killing, so she ran away from you." Hajj Sulla answered angrily, "If my free Arab daughter had committed that shame, I would have opened her womb with this agricultural knife and taken out of her womb the bastard child and smashed his head against the wall." While Abu Sha'nab was uttering those criminal words, he threw his large stick on the ground and struck his left arm with his right hand, where he kept his sharp dagger hidden under his yellow robe. The chief judge, Maulana Yasin, challenged Insaf's father, "Do you think, Hajj Sulla al-Junaid, that you can convince us that this beautiful white Arab girl left her family and ran away with this ugly black African boy because she loves him and wants to marry him?" Maulana Sharif al-Din said sarcastically, "Hajj Sulla, do you think you can deceive us with this unreasonable story that only a crazy person who has lost his mind could believe?" Our faithful Lord Al-Amin said while laughing, "O Hajj Sulla, fear God, listen to my advice to you and tell us the truth as it is." Maulana Yasin said, "We know that the truth is bitter for those who say it and for those who say to them." The African husband intervened and said, "Gentlemen, allow me to tell you the true story of my wife and her Arab father." Maulana Al-Amin said, "Please tell us the true story as it is, without frills." Maulana Sharif al-Din said, "I hope you speak quickly because we are very close to the time of the noon prayer." Then the black African husband, Deng, while weeping, narrated the tragic story that his beloved Arab wife, Insaf, went through from the time she fell in love with him in the city of Gadaref until their marriage in the city of Khartoum. Every now and then, his story is challenged, misunderstood, misinterpreted, and corrupted by the three judges. Often, he is asked to repeat or explain an event for better understanding. As he spoke, the Arab rulers continued to check and correct his grammar and fluency in Arabic pronunciation. Finally, with great difficulty, the African husband, Ding, somehow managed to end the sad story of the runaway bride and deliver it to the heads of the three stubborn Arab judges. Maulana Yasin said, "O Hajj Sulla, why did you refuse to give your Arab daughter to this African Muslim boy?" Hajj Sulla said angrily, I am free to marry my Arab daughter to whomever I want to marry her to. The Honorable Maulana Al-Amin said thoughtfully, under the law of God and his messenger, this young Arab woman is no longer under your control. She was under your guardianship and power as her father before she married her late husband, Hajj Taha. At that time, she was a virgin and could not marry any Muslim man without the permission of her father or guardian. After her first marriage, losing her virginity and becoming a widow, she had the full right to choose her second Muslim husband, and since she chose this African Muslim boy, you cannot stop her, prevent her, or divorce her from him now. Maulana Sharif al-Din quickly said, there is a grave error in what you said, O Honorable Maulana Al-Amin. The Islamic marriage of this widowed wife that you spoke about was not perfect. My reason is that there was no clear marriage between the late Hajj Taha and his wife, the disobedient Insaf. In other words, because the husband and wife did not have sex together, and therefore he did not taste her honey, and she did not taste his. Moreover, the late husband, Hajj Taha, has not yet divorced his wife, Insaf. Maulana Al-Amin shouted angrily, what do you mean by saying this? Do you expect the first husband, Hajj Taha, to emerge from the grave and divorce his fourth wife, Insaf, or to practice farewell sexual intercourse with her like a zombie to complete the clear marriage? After deep thought, Maulana Yasin said, O our blessed judges, both of you have misunderstood the law of God and his messenger. Hajj Taha's marriage to this disobedient wife cannot be called an Islamic marriage because he did not have sex with her. Unless he tasted her sweetness and she tasted his own sweetness through sexual intercourse by inserting the syringe into the coal cup, they cannot be called husband and wife. In other words, without having sex together even once in bed while naked and barefoot, their relationship cannot be called a complete Islamic marriage. Maulana Sharif al-Din shouted angrily, that's exactly what I said. Maulana Al-Amin said, yes, that is what you said, but you did not provide any verse from the Holy Quran or Hadith of the Prophet to support your judgment. Maulana Sharif al-Din said to Maulana Yasin, say your noble Quranic verse or your authentic prophetic Hadith, and I will say my verse and my Hadith, and we can see who is right in his legal ruling in this difficult marital issue. Then you can steal my Quranic verses or my Prophet's Hadith and then claim that you knew them before me. Our faithful Lord Yasin, who is the main judge, said, our blessed judges, I can resolve your dispute. Each of you must whisper his verse or hadith into my right and left ears, and then we can find out who is right and who is wrong. The married lovers Dang and Insaf are tired of standing before their three old religious judges. Moreover, the topic now being discussed and argued between them made them feel bored and angry. However, when they saw the two disputing judges whispering Quranic verses and prophetic hadiths supporting their arguments into the main judge's ears, they burst into loud laughter. Our faithful Lord said, by God Almighty, I knew this noble verse, but I wanted to see whether each of you knew it. Then the chief judge, Maulana Yasin, said, listen, Haji Sullah Junaid, God has said in his holy book, the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, verse 3, so marry as many women as you please, 2, 3, or 4 at the same time. And if you fear that you will not be able to do justice, then one or whatever your right hands possess. Therefore, your daughter's first marriage to the late Hajj Taha is not valid because there is no sexual intercourse in it. That is, the late Hajj Taha, may God have mercy on his soul, did not have sex with your daughter, Insaf, when he married her because she killed him and ran away on their first wedding night. Accordingly, her first husband cannot be called her Muslim spouse while she is now his widow, because he did not taste her honey, and she did not taste his honey. The chief judge interrupted and said to Dang, listen, African husband, I have a fundamental question that I want to ask you in front of all the distinguished attendees here. When you married this Arab girl and slept with her for the first time, did you find her a virgin damsel or a deflowered girl? The husband Dang replied, I swear by God Almighty and his holy book. Quran, when I married her, I found her to be a virgin, like the Virgin Mary. Our faithful Lord Al-Amin said thoughtfully, This means that this African boy has no right to marry this Arab girl when she was a virgin and had not yet been married without obtaining the permission of her Muslim father, Hajj Sulla al-Junayd, her legal guardian. This is because our noble prophet said, "It is not permissible for a virgin to marry without a guardian, and any virgin who marries without her guardian is an adulteress." Maulana Sharif al-Din said, "May God bless you, O Maulana Alameen, because you have discovered a fundamental problem with the validity of their marriage." Maulana Yasin angrily asked the African husband, "Dang, who is this foolish mazon or imam of the mosque who tied the knot with this Muslim girl when she was a virgin without taking the permission of her father, who is her Muslim guardian? Hajj Sulla al-Junayd?" The accused husband, Dang, replied, "His name is Imam Maulana Sheikh al-Hidayah." "Do you have an Islamic marriage certificate?" asked the lead judge. The African husband said, "Yes, I have our marriage certificate here with me." Then, with trembling hands, he took out their marriage certificate and handed it to the chief judge. Maulana Yasin began reading the document aloud. The name of Al-Mazoon is Maulana Sheikh al-Hidayah. The husband's name is Dang Majak Nasser. The wife's name is Insaf Sulla al-Junayd. The name of the guardian is Hajj Abdullah Othman. Suddenly he stopped reading and shouted at the African husband, "Who is this Hajj Abdullah Othman?" Dang replied, "He is the man who found the homeless girl Insaf eating rotten food in a dirty garbage container. So he took her to his home and took care of her like his own daughter." The chief judge said, "Well, I remembered what you told us about her miserable life after she fled from her family's home." Maulana Sharif al-Din shouted, "Wait a minute, who gave that Hajj Abdullah Othman the right to be the guardian of this disobedient girl who ran away from her father's house?" "Insaf herself appointed him as her governor," Deng said. Insaf is a woman, and according to the Sharia Shafi'i and Maliki schools of thought, a woman is completely ineligible to conclude a marriage contract, whether for herself or someone else, even if her guardian gives her permission to do so. The father can authorize and sign the marriage contract of his virgin daughter without asking her permission, no matter how old she is. Therefore, Hajj Abdullah Othman had no right to marry a virgin woman to another man if she was not his daughter. But Haji Abdullah adopted Insaf as his daughter, Deng said. Adoption in Islam is forbidden and invalidated by the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab. Therefore, it is not permissible according to Islamic Sharia for any Muslim man or a Muslim woman to adopt anyone. Deng wants to protest, but he fears that he will be accused of objecting against the teachings of Islam and challenging the Book of God, the Holy Quran. In this case, he may be considered a Muslim apostate and sentences to be hanged to death by a Sharia judge. Then the chief judge said, "Listen, Hajj Sulla al-Junayd, if I cancel the marriage of your Arab daughter to this African boy, what will happen if she is already pregnant by him? What is the Islamic ruling on that child?" Maulana Sharif al-Din said, "Only God knows what the Sharia can say about such a child." The chief judge intervened in Maulana Sharif al-Din's words, "If Sharia rules that he was born from adultery, then the Imam of the mosque Maulana Sheikh al-Hidayah, the Muslim man, Hajj Abdullah Othman, and this African boy, and this Arab girl will all be in big trouble." Maulana Alameen said, "If Sharia law says that marriage is permissible and the child is not from adultery, then the complainant, Hajj Sulla al-Junayd, will lose the case and leave here without his daughter who rebelled against his authority and fled from his house and city and return home empty-handed." Hajj Sulla al-Junayd shouted impatiently, "Who are the people of Sharia law?" Maulana Sharif al-Din answered angrily, "We are people of Sharia law." Hajj Sulla shouted at Maulana Sharif al-Din, "Then tell us your ruling, O your honor, the Sharia judge, and do not waste our time with meaningless and useless talk which doesn't satisfy hunger." The angry and abusive words of the Arab father-in-law caused the three judges to jump from their seats. As a result, they started taking it seriously. They spent a few minutes whispering among themselves. While the whispering continued, suddenly the chief judge took out his watch from the pocket of his jalabiya and shouted loudly, "It is time for the noon prayer." As a result of this religious declaration, the complainant father, Hajj Sulla al-Junayd, the African husband, Deng, the 3 Sharia judges and other Muslim men came forward from the crowd and formed a single line. Then the chief judge, Maulana Yasin, led the worshippers in a 10-minute prayer, and Maulana Alamin was al-Mamun. At the same time, the disobedient white Arab girl Insaf, who was suspected of the validity of her marriage to the black African husband Deng, was ordered to leave the courtroom because she is a naked awara and impure woman, and her presence among them will invalidate their prayers. The estranged wife became happy and not angry when she was removed from the courtroom of the law of God and His messenger. She now has the opportunity to sit down and rest for a while. When the prayer ended, the expelled Arab wife was summoned because she was the main suspect, and her African husband was the second suspect. Then the 3 judges returned to the ruling seats again, and the disputants were asked to stand in their previous places. The chief judge said politely, "Hajj Salah al-Junaid, pray to the Prophet." The father of Insaf responded respectfully, "1,000 prayers for the beloved." The judge appealed, "Our Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, said, if a man comes to you and you are satisfied with his religion and character, then marry him to your daughter." "Then why did you refuse your daughter to marry this Muslim boy?" Hajj Salah answered defiantly, "If this black southern Negro boy comes to you and asks for your Arab daughter's hand in marriage, can you, Maulana Yasin, place your right hand on the Holy Quran now and swear that you will give her to him?" When Hajj Salah challenged and confronted the chief judge of his hypocrisy, he laughed and said calmly, "I will not give him my Arab daughter in marriage." "So, you rejected this black Muslim boy because your daughter is Arab, and he is an African man?" asked Maulana Alamin. Hajj Salah answered frankly, "Yes, this is the truth. My daughter is a free, white Arab girl. Her grandfather is Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Holy Prophet, and this black boy is a southern Dinka Negro slave. In this case, we can dissolve their marriage according to the Sharia law of inadequacy between the wife and her husband," the chief judge said. Maulana Sharaf al-Din said happily, "God bless you, Maulana Yasin. You have reminded us of a particularly important law in Sharia." Our faithful Lord Alamin also said with pleasure, "Finally, the truth has come, and falsehood has perished." Indeed, falsehood was crushed from the beginning. The principal judge Maulana Yasin said, "In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. We, the 3 members of this blessed court of Allah and His messenger, announce from today onwards the annulment of the marriage contract between Deng Majak Nasser and Insaf, the daughter of Hajj Salah al-Junaid, based on the law of inadequacy or insufficiency between the tribe of the husband and the tribe of the wife." Maulana Sharaf al-Din said seriously, "Listen to my words, Deng Majak Nasser, your marital relationship before today with Insaf Salah al-Junaid was legitimate. If you had a child born or in the womb before this day with this Arab girl, then this child is also legitimate. However, if it is proven that after this day onwards you remain together and commit adultery as a man and a woman, you will be guilty of violating the law of God and His messenger, and you will be arrested and severely punished according to the Sharia law, which is either flogging or stoning." Maulana Alamin said, "Both of you be careful and do not cross God's limits. The punishment for adultery is flogging the guilty party, whether it is a man or a woman, with 100 lashes on their bare backs." Maulana Sharaf al-Din said, "There is no mercy or pity for those who transgress the limits of God. And there is no excuse for the one who has been warned." Then the chief judge of the court of God and His messenger shouted, "Now you may bring trial number 5.